Jani Lane's ex says Warrant singer was drugged and raped by fellow musician. And this is by Scott Monroe. It's from like 3 years ago. And from Classic Rock Magazine. Now, this is a new story to me. Obviously, his ex, Bobbie Brown. I'm not. I really like Warrant. I was a big fan of their first three albums. I think Jani Lane is a completely underrated singer songwriter. But I couldn't care less what his ex-wife has to say about anything. I don't have anything against her. I just don't care. That being stated, I was watching another story, and Jani Lane was in an interview saying, "Yeah, I've been divorced. I've been this. I've been raped." And it's like, I've been raped. You don't really hear that from a guy. So it turns out that there's this story that he got raped when he first got to Hollywood, to Los Angeles, the Sunset Strip. So let's get into it. Jani Lane's ex-wife Bobbie Brown claims the Warrant frontman was drugged and raped by a heavy metal musician and their manager early in his career. The ex-wife of late Warrant frontman Jani Lane said the vocalist told her he was drugged and raped by a member of a heavy metal band and their manager early in his career. The model author who appeared in the video for Warrant's 1990 hit single Cherry Pie was speaking with Fox News about her new book Cherry on Top, flirty, 40-something, and funny as fuck. The website pointed to her comments that Lane could have used the Me Too movement if it had been around prior to his death in 2011. Brown replied, "At the moment that he admitted he was drugged and raped by a member of a famous heavy metal band and their manager, it was devastating to hear. He admitted this to me before his death. It was traumatizing to watch him reveal those things and how much it had affected his life up to that point. When we were married, I had no clue. This occurred when he was just starting out on the strip. So when I'm hearing all of this with him, I'm crying with him. I was going, we have to do something. We have to say something." And he was like, no. It was a humiliation for a man to be in that position. She adds, it's so emasculating and humiliating. It would have been humiliating for him. So we couldn't say anything. Instead, he lived with this anger inside. He felt like he couldn't say anything because he was a man. He was raised to be a man, not to cry. It was all mind-fucking. I could see how it would have been devastating and humiliating for him to speak up. I got his perspective from it, but at the same time, I felt so hopeless for him, knowing that he felt he couldn't say anything and wouldn't. That affected him greatly his whole life. It was part of the reason he drank. It's sad, really. Lane was found dead in a hotel room in California on August 11th, 2011, with authorities later revealing that the 47-year-old died of acute alcohol poisoning. Now, that's the end of the article, but looking around and looking at other people who have commented on this story, there were several names that popped up. Nikki Sixx was one. Paul Stanley was another. Rob Halford was another. And the ones that, the two really, honestly, that keep, because around the time that he was in the Sunset Strip, that would have been around I think it was 1982, maybe. Could have been 85. I forget. Either which way. All right, so I looked real quick and it was around 85. So what other people who have done a deeper dive into this have figured out is that most likely it was either Rob Halford or Dave Holland. But to be honest, we'll never know. And it's an awful thing that happened to Jani Lane. The Paul Stanley thing, I don't think makes much sense because it really affected Lane in a very negative way. And, 5 years after he had arrived in Hollywood, he ended up doing a songwriting session with Paul Stanley. However, Bobbie Brown was doing some interview and they were talking about heavy metal bands, and two of the names that came up were Iron Maiden and Judas Priest. And she said, "Ugh." And he goes, "Oh, you don't really like that. You kind of like the kind of hair metal type stuff." And she goes, "No, it's not that. It's she just I don't really care for Judas Priest." And he goes, "Oh, really? What in particular about Priest don't you like?" And she said, "I'll tell you later." So, and at that time, Dave Holland, who later on down the line was accused of sexually molesting a special needs student. I mean, he was in Priest at the time. And of course, there's Halford. And Halford would talk about that he would get blackout drunk and do stuff that he doesn't necessarily remember doing. So, again, who knows? But I just wanted to share that story. So, if I stay till the end, thanks. And we will talk at a later date.